Hello, everyone, and we're back with another Approaching Your Future. This time, not with your hosts, Donna, Kahn, and Victor, but only Victor. And today, we're going to be talking about the importance of the sustainable movement and why sustainability is such a crucial thing for the American culture. But like Donna say, although she's not here today. With no longer further ado, welcome to Approaching Your Future. And today, the topic will be really, really, really interesting. I think that one of the best things that we can offer here when we're talking about approaching your future or when we're presenting this podcast is pretty much how the differences between our countries, right? And let's say not just the differences in our countries, but how pretty much like how there is a huge difference, there is a huge contrast. And when you're talking about sustainability and you're comparing the United States with different countries around the world, of course that knowing well what sustainability is, we know that when we compare the United States with other countries like in Europe, like Sweden or Norway, of course those specific places might be a bit more advanced in the way they handle their sustainability, right? And they might have different innovative ideas. Of course, there are smaller countries. The United States is pretty huge. It's a pretty much a whole continent, and we know that it's not the easiest task to keep on movements like sustainable movements, such as the what a lot of Americans heard about, the Green New Deal, which was proposed by Alexander Cortez or Ocasio Cortez, which she's a very very famous politician here in the United States. So there are a lot of ideas, there are a lot of movements that are pushing for sustainable ways of living. And when you go and you live here in the United States, you start noticing that there are a lot of people that worry about it. Um, I want to give you guys a little bit of a description of what sustainability really means. And of course, guys, so as many of you know, my background, I am from Brazil. And in Brazil, we do have a very good idea of what sustainability is and how important it is. Of course, that in Brazil, we do rely a lot in our natural resources, right? So that's one of the reasons why it's so important to talk about sustainability, because I know that for me, I bring a different perspective. You know, I know that in Brazil, there are a lot of movements, there are a lot of political parties that are focused on sustainability. But of course, when you have such a free when the country is so free in terms of politics, and when you have so many options, of course there will be a lot of people that will not be pushing for sustainable movements, right? But what is sustainability? So in the broader sense, the sustainability refers to the ability to maintain or support a process continuously over time. In business and policy contexts, sustainability seeks to prevent the depletion of natural or physical resources so that they will remain available for the long term. So, with other words, sustainability basically means that whatever means you have, whatever actions you can take to preserve not just the nature, but any sort of physical materials that could later damage our environment. Sustainability is that, is the ability to support and keep these resources pretty much not necessarily untouched, but well managed, so we can use it in the long run. And when we're talking about sustainability, we're also thinking about humanity, society, right? The way we all live together, and how not necessarily easy it was to get everybody interconnected all the way here. um, of course, that for innovation, it needs a lot, right? When we're thinking about innovation, we're thinking of how much technology you need to create things, or how many fuels you will be releasing into the environment to achieve such innovation, right? So those things are concerning because we know in a way that nowadays for us to achieve a certain level of coexistence, there needs to be a lot of resources, right? And one of the things that I wanted to mention is how, how, for example, countries like Brazil, which is where I come from, how much water we consume. And these factors, they are important when we're talking about sustainability, because in countries like France, you know that you have a limit of how much water you can use, for example, weekly, right? So these differences, a lot of times they're brought for reasons that are related to our environment and how we can keep things sustainable, and how we can keep a long reserve of water for people and friends. So that's all about sustainability. And why is it so important? Because that pretty much allows us to coexist and to live in the same world for for as long as we can, right? And it doesn't only give us the ability to coexist, but also to be aware of how our actions towards the environment and how our actions in our daily lives can really affect the places and really affect our futures and the future of our children. And that's just an example. So when I was researching about sustainability, I saw that there were a lot of good examples of what sustainability is, right? What are sustainable examples? Like clean energy is one of the most obvious and most used. But there is something here in the United States that a lot of people don't really know, but they do know, but they don't see how this trend is increasing, which is solar energy. Solar energy is a form of sustainable energy, right? And in order to install in your house, how the like you have to think of like how the government makes solar energy sustainable, right? They give you guys pretty much, in addition to you being able to afford to have a solar panel in your house, the government will also give you tax breaks for using sustainable energy. So that's one of the ways in which the United States keeps this country more sustainable with more ideas around sustainability, right? Like, for example, another example, I think that um, wind energy is something that is not just used a lot here in Massachusetts. Where I come from in Brazil, you do see a lot of windmills. And that's another form of sustainable energy, right? So when we're thinking about sustainability, we're thinking of the ways in which we can create energy to make our lives more sustainable. But there are also things on a daily basis that we can do as international students and as even citizens here in the United States to keep not just our neighborhood clean, but protect different species, protect the environment, such as recycling is an awesome example. When I first moved here to the United States, one of the things that I noticed is that you always have a trash to recycle. And why is it so important? Because if you don't prioritize recycling and you don't give people the obligation and give the people the sense of like how important it is to recycle, a lot of people will not recycle. So here, one of the things that we do at our house to be more sustainable and to do our parts in the environment is that we separate our compost trash, and we have our recycling bins, which are different types of trash, right? These things are important because these everyday actions will definitely not only make you a better citizen or a person who is contributing more than just consuming, but at the same time, it will also give you an idea of how important these sustainable actions are in the American culture because they're engraved, they're a part of it. So if you don't understand it, it's fine. But it's really important to understand that here, you don't throw trash in the streets or in the water. That's called littering, for example. So here in the United States, you can see that there are a lot of policies, there are a lot of things that the government does, and other businesses and managers in general. Everybody has this common sense of how sustainable approaches are important. Here approach, for example, one of the things that I've always appreciated seeing is how now that we're pretty much mostly online, we have reduced the use of paper drastically. And now, for example, documentations can all be fully sent online digitally. So that's also a form of sustainability, right? A lot of you are familiar with the term sustainability and what being sustainable is, but a lot of people sometimes are not necessarily understanding how big it is here in this country and how important it is because it is a part of the culture of the United States. If you think of philanthropist work, which is pretty much a philanthropist is a person who makes donations or investments in charities or nonprofit organizations, right? A lot of times this philanthropic work goes towards sustainable projects. For example, Boston is a city that is highly innovative in ways in which they use renewable energy, which is a sustainable way of using energy, and how they make the space more, because nowadays we know that with research we know that for you to have a clean city, it's not just about educating the people that lives in that city. It's not just about coming up with campaigns and educating people and telling them you must throw the trash in the trash. It's not just that. The city goes an extra mile and they have architects, they have city planners, they have urban planners that will make sure that whatever new area of the city they're adding, that it will be well projected in a way that is not only sustainable but clean as well. The materials they will use, they will choose for these houses. For example, if you're living in Boston right now and you're going around the newest condos that are being built in different neighborhoods, you will also notice that the material that is being used to build these buildings are not the same as before. Like back then, if you go right now to Beacon Hill, which is like a famously known area of Boston, it's pretty old, as a matter of fact. Or if you go to if you go to the North End, which is like the little Italy of Boston, you see that most of the buildings there, they're built with bricks. And a lot of these buildings too, a lot of times they're built with wood. And if you really think brick and wood, first of all, you're cutting down trees to build houses, and that's not sustainable, right? And bricks, let's be honest, bricks, they are somewhat sustainable because they're not really polluting the environment, but they're not the safest and the easiest and the most convenient forms of building nowadays. So what we've noticed in Boston as a one of the sustainable approaches of the city is that Boston has been building all these condos and new buildings with this material that is not necessarily plastic, but it's much cleaner, it's more sustainable, and of course it makes things a bit cheaper. It gives a nice design to the house, not to the house, but like to the city overall. It looks more modern, and it is interesting. It is interesting because you see the cities trying to find cleaner ways to build houses, to build buildings, to provide to the society, to the communities that are in the Boston area and beyond, right? So when we're talking about sustainability, we have to keep these things in mind because these are the approaches that the city has been applying, and not only the city, but different generations and politicians, right? Like I've mentioned before, the Green New Deal proposed by AOC was so big, and so mentioned in our generation. Like I am right now 25, and a lot of the people that studied with me, went to school with me, everybody is aware of how important it is to control global warming. So when we're talking about sustainability here in the United States, we have to keep all these things in mind. How important it is to be clean, to keep things clean, to not harm the environment, to not harm the animals that we're coexisting with, for example. And how important it is to always think of different ways to benefit our land, your house, or to do your part as a person who lives here to keep the city not just more sustainable, but more clean. Because it's something that is not just interesting to whoever is managing the city. It's interesting for all of us. If you have visited a country that goes through financial crisis or has gone through the struggles of war, or just countries that are going through a rough time, historically or not, one of the first things you notice is that they don't have time to prioritize how sustainable and clean they are. And by not being sustainable, you're not just affecting the environment in these countries, you're not just affecting the living ways of people, but their life expectations, like how long people will live. That's one of the things that affects, just for example. So it's really important for us in this generation, the upcoming generations, or you, if you're an English learner, it's important for you too to understand how different cultures are approaching sustainable causes or projects, because this is the way to the future. Right now, we have let's say we have a big world, of course, in which a lot of you are coming from. You might be from Colombia, you might be from China, you might be from Brazil or Turkey, but you know if you've traveled, you know how many airplanes are always taking off, wasting fuel, and how much plastic we use every day. So you as a citizen of the world, you should bring this sense with you into coming to a new place and kind of like refresh and start from zero, like as a new person. And you think, okay, I'm living in this new place. It's the United States or maybe somewhere in Europe. Who knows where you're living, right? But when you situate yourself, just look around you and see like things are beautiful not because things are expensive, or they're not beautiful because they're just clean and there's someone who's getting paid to clean that up. Things here are more organized and a lot of times they look beautiful because there is a higher sense of sustainability, sustainable, um, how do I say, there is a higher sense of sustainability. And that's why things are the way they are. Because when you're thinking about sustainable ways of living, you're not necessarily only affecting your own ecosystem, you're affecting the way other people live too. And you're taking, in a way, you're taking trash out of places where it shouldn't be. So, you as an international student, always keep that in your mind. Keep in mind that it is important to care about the environment. It is important to care about your health. It is important to care about the ways you're consuming energy and how you're producing and how you're recycling waste. Because not only because it's a part of the culture here in the United States, but also because we want to live in this earth for much longer. We want our kids to have a better future. So when we're talking about sustainability, we're thinking about these things. We're thinking about activism. Yes, we are. We're thinking about campaigning towards what is right, for our ecosystem, for our biodiversity, you know. So yes, there are a lot of important aspects in sustainability, right? And if Dana was here, we would be able to bounce a lot of ideas because I know Dana, she has her own set of experiences living in different parts of the world. But in my own side, in my own experience, this is pretty much what I think that, every international student should keep in mind. That my own experience living here, working here, has always been around, okay, how do I navigate? How do I navigate as an international student or just as a citizen? However, how do I navigate my life without living too much waste? How do I navigate my day to day life without harming the environment or without not just polluting, but without affecting others' health because of my lack of consciousness? So those are things to keep in mind. And if you guys have any ideas on other ways in which your countries are being sustainable, or if you guys have any ideas on how to add more to this discussion slash brainstorm on why sustainability is important and what sustainability means here in the United States, let us know down in the comments or send us a message on Instagram. Would be really, really happy to know from you guys. And I think that's it for now, guys. It's been a pleasure to talk a bit about my own impressions as an international student on how sustainability is important in the United States, on how there are a lot of different movements around surrounding sustainability, and just my overall impression of what it means to the future. If you guys have anything to add, we'd love to hear from you. But if not, this will be it for today. And I'm getting right to the outro, like Danna would say. Thank you for tuning in into Approaching Your Future with your hosts, Danna, Kahn, and Victor Ribeiro, but this time just Victor Ribeiro, where we discuss different cultural aspects of life in the United States. Until next Tuesday at 2 p.m., and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn notifications on. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at approach_USA, and then you keep up with the latest updates. And if you're a student, that's where you will find most of our activities. I would love to hear more from you. So if you guys have any feedback, please feel free to send it our way. But for now, that's it, guys. Thank you so much. It was an awesome chat, and see you guys next Tuesday.